The Allstate Sugar Bowl, January 1st at 8:45 p.m. at Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana, between the number 15 Texas Longhorns and the number 5 Georgia Bulldogs.
Georgia lost the 2017 national championship game to Alabama. Not big news. Everyone kind of knows that. They were winning. Probably should have won that game before Tua came in the second half and led Alabama back to a national championship. For much of 2018, Georgia played just as well and looked like a national championship contender for pretty much the entire season again this year, like they did last year. Trounced any opponent they faced. Got off to a 6-0 start before heading down to Baton Rouge to play LSU, where they got just embarrassed, 36-16, to start a stretch of 4 straight ranked SEC opponents. So 36-16 against LSU. Next week was number 9 Florida, where the Bulldogs won 37-16. And then number 9 Kentucky Wildcats the following week. So back-to-back top 10 teams. 34-17 Georgia wins. And then 27-10 win over number 24 Auburn to secure a rematch with Alabama in the SEC championship game. And wouldn't you know it, Bulldogs leading the Crimson Tide for much of the first half in that game. And then just like 2017, a backup quarterback led Alabama from behind to steal a victory away from the Bulldogs and knock them out of the college football playoff.
And knocked Tua out of the Heisman contention.
And essentially it knocked Tua out of Heisman contention because he played badly, got injured, and Jalen Hurts was the quarterback to bring Alabama back from behind, who was benched in a national championship game last year. So it's all these storylines kind of going on, and Nick Saban is essentially the best, and he knows what to do. They were rewarded for a second-place SEC finish. They get to play number 15 Texas Longhorns in the Sugar Bowl berth. So Georgia is one of those teams, if you listen to the Rose Bowl game write-up that I talked about, where Ohio State can complain about not competing for a national championship, I think Georgia is one of those teams this year that can complain about not competing for a national championship. I don't really think this is much of a matchup. According to Yahoo, when I was writing this, the spread is at 13 in favor of Georgia. I don't think that's enough. I don't think Texas is that good. They're one of the only teams that kind of plays defense in the Big 12, but if Georgia is playing at full strength, has all their players competing in this game, I don't think it's going to even be close. Georgia's got a lot to prove. They finished number 5 in the final college football playoff rankings with 2 losses, ahead of 1 loss Ohio State, who finished in number 6. They need to prove, and they want to prove that, we deserve to be in the top 4. We're going to be one of those top 4 teams at the end of the season. And I think Texas is started the rebuild, and it looks like they're coming to fruition, coming to the end of that rebuild for Tom Herman. I think Texas is going to be good in the next couple of years. Right, John?
Yeah, Tom Herman's definitely got it set up for success there, and that's good. But I think that you're right that the 13 points or however much they're favored by, this is the biggest mismatch of the New Year's Day games. And I mean, that's even saying UCF and LSU. You know how I feel about LSU in that game. I still think that Texas just isn't quite there. Like this Texas team has a lot of targets to throw to. You have Collin Johnson, who's gigantic and had 945 yards this season. You have Lil'Jordan Humphrey, who's also over 6'5", and had 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns on the season. So both wideouts make things kind of easy on Sam Ehlinger. Ehlinger ended the season pretty well with 3,100 yards through the air. And overall, like, he can talk some trash. I don't know if you watched any of the stuff between them, like him and Kyler Murray, like at the end of the Oklahoma game, where Texas ended up winning 48-45, but Ehlinger essentially just came over. It's how quarterbacks do, just say, hey, good game, good job. And Kyler Murray got just all pissed off about it and was like, man, don't be coming over to talk to me after I just lost. It's like, okay. So Ehlinger, like, he fired back some stuff. Anyway.
College kids, man.
Yeah, you can't ever know what they're going to do. Ehlinger and the Longhorns have a chip on their shoulder coming into this one after beating Oklahoma in the regular season, then losing to them in Big 12 championship. The offensive line is a bit of a worry. Ehlinger was sacked 24 times on the season, but overall the pocket tends to hold up. It'll definitely be put to the test on New Year's Day. The offense is going to have to go shot for shot with Georgia because similar to Oklahoma and other Big 12 teams, there's very little defense. As you mentioned, there's more than most teams, so better than Oklahoma, better than some of these other Big 12 teams. But they're middle of the pack to bottom of the pack in almost all defensive categories. One of the bright spots defensively for the Longhorns is Charles Omenihu. I looked it up earlier, and I cannot remember. I think it's Omenihu. Who took down the quarterbacks that he was facing 9.5 times this season. And he also is a bit of a trash talker. So you have Sam Ehlinger. Everybody on this team is they're ready to get into it with anybody at any time. I think the game's going to get a bit chippy. And I can imagine the two teams just getting in each other's faces a majority of the game. The dude loves to play, Menahu. Loves playing the game and will be in Jake Fromm's face all game. Not big on Jake Fromm. I think that the defensive line for the Longhorns is going to have a good day. I'm also looking for senior linebackers Anthony Wheeler and Gary Johnson. They were both the top 2 tacklers for the Longhorns to have a big day in the final game of their careers. So similar to the chip for Texas, there's an even larger chip for Georgia, as you mentioned, number 5. So they're trying to prove that they should have been there as the number 4 spot. If Sam Ehlinger and the offense can produce against a really good Georgia defense, they may stand a shot, but I have Georgia pushing forward in the second half to win the game, 42-31.
I think, what you mentioned about Jake Fromm, kind of spot on. He is a good young quarterback, but he's not an outstanding young quarterback. He doesn't, at least statistically wise, 27 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So he takes good care of the ball, only 2,500 yards. I think Georgia's a very balanced offense. You got the running back situation. You got a 1,000-yard rusher in DeAndre Swift out there for the running game. It's very balanced, though, for Georgia. You're not going to have the huge statistical game, or you could have a huge statistical game from almost anybody out there. So it's really confusing. I think Buckeye fans really want to know a little bit more about some guy named Justin Fields. He's the backup quarterback for Georgia, and he is rumored to be transferring to Ohio State next season. And it sounds like he would be able to play next season. So that could be the Buckeyes' next starting quarterback is the backup quarterback for Georgia right now, Justin Fields. That's the storyline that you're going to watch if you're a Buckeye fan. And also one quick note, one sitter-outer for Georgia, since we love that word so much, sitter-outer. The Georgia cornerback who won the Thorpe Award, the Jim Thorpe Award for best corner in the country, he is going to be sitting out that game. DeAndre Baker, not going to be there. He's going to focus on the NFL draft. So that's a big loss for the Georgia defensive backfield, but I still think Georgia has enough to defeat this Texas team this season. And I think Texas is going to be back and better next year.
So it sounds like both taking Georgia, both think that Texas can and will be better next year in 2019.